Best known nationally for his time at ESPN. Jay Crawford anchored the live 11 p.m. edition of SportsCenter until April 2017. Prior to that, he spent 9 years hosting ESPN's morning show, Cold Pizza. Currently, he serves as an anchor at Channel 3 WKYC studios in Cleveland. He is a graduate of Sandusky Perkins High and received his bachelor's degree in radio, television, and film in '87 from Bowling Green State University. Jay has won 3 Society of Professional Journalism Best Sports Program Awards, 4 Emmy Awards, Best Broadcaster Award from the Associated Press. He has also contributed his time to the Special Olympics, as well as being a host for the Children's Miracle Network. Let's give a warm welcome to Jay Crawford.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I told one of your members 3 years ago, when I moved home, I promise I will get here for a luncheon. I promise. My schedule's been super crazy, as you can probably imagine, because along with the duties I have at Channel 3, I also share the stage daily with Garrett Bush on the newly launched Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I say newly launched, it's actually launched in May. If you're a fan of Cleveland sports and you haven't seen it yet, you'll want to. We yell, argue, laugh, cry, and fight 2 hours every day about the things that are near and dear to all of us, and that's the Cleveland sports teams. I understand we have a professional basketball team. That's the rumor. I haven't seen them in a while, but I heard that we do. I'm hoping we find them soon. I also promise that I will make it in the future to be a featured speaker at the luncheon. But when Garrett reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and said that he was invited to come speak to you, and he asked if I would be kind enough to introduce him, I started blowing things off my schedule to make sure that I could be here. I did not know Garrett Bush 1 year ago. When we were getting ready to launch the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, I was pretty busy with my duties at Channel 3, but the folks behind the scenes that were putting the staff together told me who they were targeting to be co-hosts. And I started digging into Garrett's background, and I'm like, this guy has a lot going on. He's everywhere. Little did I know how much he has going on. Since I've become friends with Garrett, I've learned that he pretty much has his fingers in every possible enterprise imaginable. A calendar, swimsuits, cologne. Anybody want to wear a beautifully smelling cologne? He's your man. He literally does it all. I call him Cleveland's version of Nick Cannon, because he works like 12 jobs, and I think he's finally found the one that's his breakthrough. He's done a lot of local radio in the past, but he's just, one word to sum up Garrett Bush would be hustle. He literally will not say no to an opportunity. If it's an opportunity for him to get his name and whatever programs he's working with out there, he will take that opportunity. He comes from an athletic background. He was hitting like 60 home runs a year when he was 10 in Little League. He assures me he's close to the same size now as he was when he was 12. He was a 3-sport star at Canton McKinley, with his main sport being football. He went on to play at Ohio University. I think one of his claim to fame is he has sacked Ben Roethlisberger. Yes. As soon as I found that out, he was a friend for life. He is a terrific, terrific young man. And I couldn't be more pleased to have the honor to introduce to you my friend and Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show co-host, Garrett Bush.
Man, I know you're going to have to get that up.
We bring this up.
Yeah. Try to. She goes.
Now, this is, I think you guys had the wrong person up here. It's a hard act to follow. He had like 8 Emmys and he has Grammys and he's just Jay Crawford. But thank you, Jay, for definitely introducing me. He's been pivotal in my career. Like I said, he said over a year ago, he didn't even know who I was. We just kind of showed up, and I think the director, Steve, our director, Steve, came up and told us, he said, all right, we'll call you on the phone, and he said, hey, do you want to work on a TV show? And I'm like, I thought he was lying. I thought he was just joking. I hung up on him. I was like, yeah, somebody's playing around on the phone. He called me back again, like probably 2 minutes later. He says, this is Steve. I live in Atlanta. I work for a company called Tegna, and we're starting a show called the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. So I was just like, okay, this sounds great. And he says, hey, would you like to do television full time? And I said, yeah. He said, do you want to know how much you get paid? I said, it doesn't matter. I'm there. Like, if it's showing, I'm there. So, eventually I got on the set, and it was my first time ever working, and first time ever working on television. And I just remember coming up, and they were like, hey, by the way, the guy we wanted you to do it was Josh Cribbs. So Josh Cribbs couldn't do it. Thank you, Josh. I like the fact that you couldn't do it, and I showed up, and it worked out. So, today, what I really want to do is, when I was thinking about different things to say and to go over, I said, man, look at all these great people that have been here before me. And I said, I gotta come up with something creative. This is not gonna work. They got every single Hall of Fame member to ever be enshrined that has spoken here. So I said, I gotta make this thing my own, and I gotta do a good job to keep everybody awoke, right? So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go through my story. I'm gonna go through and tell you about how I got to where I went, but I will have a magic word. It's gonna be called break time. And when I say break time, we're just gonna talk about random stuff. I'm gonna talk about something random in the middle. So I'm gonna keep you guys awoke and follow along, and I think we'll have a good job. We'll have a good day, right? So I wanna start with this. Matthew chapter 5, verse 42. Don't. I butchered that when he was looking at me like, come on, we gotta get it together. Matthew 5:42, he says, give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Now, a lot of times in our lives, we think when we say give, we think of monetary value, we think of money, we think of finance, we think of those things. But it actually means more than we think. People often believe we are talking about money when we are talking about giving. Money does serve a purpose, but giving someone your time, your energy, expertise, advice, and support can even be more valuable than money. I'd like to share with you 5 stories involving people who made an everlasting impact in my life, and that these stories are a catalyst for my success today. So we'll start, and as I say, look out for the word break time, because we will have one coming up here soon. So the first person I'd like to highlight is Kendall Lewis. Does anybody know who Kendall Lewis is here? The big sports kahuna. He was on radio for a very long time in Cleveland, Ohio. He was a pioneer. And my father and I used to listen to radio, 1220, all the time, sports talk radio. And my mom was going back to college, and my mom and dad are really cute. They can't go anywhere without each other. So when my mom would go to college, my dad used to sit in the parking lot and wait for her to get out of school. So we had a lot of time in the car. So we sit in there and we listen to sports talk, and it was great. I just loved the way he would tell a story. I loved the way he delivered a story and how he used to keep everyone so engaged. And he was one of the first African-American pioneers on the radio. Fast forward, I got in the industry, and one of my first jobs was as a board op, a producer. Now, if you don't know anything about board ops or producers, they are to be seen, not heard. You push the buttons, you be quiet, host does the job. BSK was the first person who ever let me talk on the radio. So he would go in and go into his spiel, and then he would ask me what I would think about it. And at the time, I didn't really understand why he was doing it, At the time, he had suffered a stroke. So when I started working with BSK, I would go downstairs, I would let him in, I would help him walk up the stairs, and we would get there. And I didn't realize that he was letting me talk because he was kind of out of breath. He was struggling. And he trusted me enough that I wouldn't go off the rails. So he was the first person to ever ask me and let me do it. And my program director would be like, hey, why is Garrett talking? I keep hearing Garrett talking. And Kendall used to say, Andy, it's my show. The young guy has it. I trust him. BSK, I kept moving along, and I got another job, and so my hours were different. I started working a corporate job, and I was less and less at the radio station. And then I got news that Kendall had got sick again. And the BSK, he could not make it to the studio, and at the time, this is 2012, 2013, it was like there was no working from home. So he actually didn't have as many shifts, and I heard that he was really struggling. So I called him up, and I would see how he was doing, and he said he's fine, and he was working on his draft guide. And he, if anybody is familiar with Phil Steele comes up with these great draft guides, and BSK used to just have draft guides of all of the top prospects, and I don't know how he would do it by himself. But he actually reached out to me, and I was really frustrated at the time because I had transitioned and I wanted to really be on air. I didn't know how to get there, and the producer role was getting old for me, and I was starting to get frustrated. And he said, listen, don't get frustrated. He said, look, all you can be is you. The best you will work, but you have to work on who you are. And I said, okay. So he said, never talk about anybody else that's on air. Never talk about another person who's doing a job. All you can do is you. And if you can do that, you can be on air. So BSK did something that I felt was so big for me at the time. He didn't give me money, he gave me his time. The BSK would call me at night, and he would say, okay, I'm gonna give you a topic, go. And so he used to give me a topic, and I used to rattle off everything I had about this topic. And he would let me go and keep going, and all of a sudden he'd stop me and say, okay, time. I liked how you did the open. I liked how you did a little humor. I think you should add a couple more facts to that. Maybe you should change the way you said this in the second sentence. Maybe you should conclude a little stronger. And he would do that for me once a week. Call me on the phone, say go, and I would go through a spiel of talking about sports. And I didn't know it at the time, but those were my first shows. Those were my first real shows. He actually was giving me something that was more valuable than money. He was actually giving me his style. He was giving me coaching. He was giving me all these things. And when BSK, I got a call probably about 4 or 5 weeks prior to me doing my first show. And I got a call, and they said that the BSK had passed away. And it was tough. It was so tough because I felt like one of the things he did before he passed away was he made sure he gave back. He could have took that time to spend with his family. He could have took that time to spend with his loved ones. He could have did anything, but I felt like he took his time to pay it forward. And so to this day, when people say, hey, what's your biggest influence? I always told his son I would keep his name alive. And everybody comes, I say, I can't be the best in Cleveland because Kendall Lewis, to me, will always be the best on the radio. And what he taught me was pay it forward. So now my job, as he's given to me, is to pay it forward to others. You can clap. You guys can clap this. The second tenet, this is a story, and this is a really great one because it involves my brother. And sometimes as the older brother, you're the guy. You're in trouble. I used to get in trouble. My mom, somebody would be doing something, and I wouldn't even be in the same room. I wasn't even there, Mom. I wasn't even. Garrett, why did you let your brothers do that? I wasn't there. I was at home. They were in school, remember? Still doesn't matter. Put your brother's snowsuit on, get your other brother's shoes on, we gotta go. I'm like, man, this is crazy. So obviously people know when you're the oldest, you get it the hard way, right? So, but in this case, my brother, he did something for me that I'll never forget. Without him doing this, I don't think I'd be here today. Sometimes when you're working in this industry, you gotta choose between your passion and paying bills. So this time, this was during my first marriage. I was under pressure to pay the bills. Passion had to come in second. So I started working in corporate America. I started working at University Hospital. Eventually I moved into this consulting position, and you know, it was a position and role where, you know, I didn't have to struggle from paycheck to paycheck, and I was doing it, and everything seemed to be great. And early on in my radio career, I was one of the first people to start creating my own like shows and blogs and different things like that. When we were younger, my brother got a Fisher-Price machine, and we used to tape record these little shows. And we would run them back and do our thing. And my brother was like, hey man, this is awesome, keep doing your thing. As I started working in this corporate job, obviously I started taking less and less jobs, less and less shifts at the radio station. And my brother did something to me that was so moving. I was working and I was coming home. I was coming home from work. He said, hey, are you home? I said, yeah. He comes up, pulls up. He said, I just wanted to give you some stuff that you left in Canton. I had moved to Cleveland at this time. And he came up and he said, hey, I just think you should have this. And he pulled out this box out of his car. And this box had all of this recording equipment, like a microphone, like headphones, all this stuff that I had spent money on because I really was so into like doing shows and things like that. And he said, hey man, when's the last time you did a show? And I couldn't remember. I was like maybe 6-8 months ago. He said, man, I just wanted you to have it. And I don't know why that hit me like that. It hit me. And what he was doing was he wasn't giving me money, he was giving me his energy. Sometimes when you are in a place where you don't see the success, you're in the middle of the journey, you don't see it, sometimes people can give you energy. All of you in here, I was just talking, and we were talking before we got here, I said, you know what's so great about this club? As I said, this looks like a tight-knit group of people. It's the kind of group where if one of you miss a couple of the meetings, 3 or 4 of you will call them and say, hey, is everything going on? You good? You all right? Just want to see if you need anything. That's the type of energy, and that's the type of people you have to surround yourself by. You know, good people that will encourage you and give you energy to keep going when you don't necessarily have it for yourself. And I think at that time, my brother really gave me some great energy, and he really helped me, put me back on a path to saying, always, it's never too late to continue with your passions. You can pay bills. Heck, I pay bills all the time, still pay bills. And thanks to my wife, I pay them on time now. Look, that's so nice. She was like, no, you can't have that, we have bills, stop. Okay. And this brings us to our first break time. So let's get right to it. Break time is making sure everybody's still woke in here. I don't want nobody sleeping. You guys are my elders, right? I wanted to come in here and ask you a question and maybe help me out. I need to understand some things. Things I never understood when I was a kid, okay? I don't have any children yet, but I do want to know if you can help me with this. So when I went to school, they taught us that germs make you sick, right? You know, germs make you sick, you go outside and, you know, the germs get in and you get a cold or something, right? And you start coughing. Pretty much rudimentary. But for some reason, my parents and grandparents were hell-bent on saying that you got sick because of the weather. I'm confused now. Like, can you tell me why it was I could not wear shorts when it was cold? She had a rudimentary temperature too. It was rudimentary. She would say, unless it is 67 degrees. I don't know why you picked 67. Can you let me know why 67 was the temperature in which I could wear shorts? I was confused. I'm still confused to this day. My grandmother had something called pneumonia weather. What is pneumonia weather? Is that, like, do you go outside and it's pneumonia and you just catch it? And you couldn't ask her anything. She would be so mad if you said, what is that? Shut up. It's pneumonia weather, go back and change them pants. I said, okay. I still don't get it. Maybe you guys can help me out. You know, you could put it on a napkin, write it up, and we'll put it in one of these raffles and we figure it out. I don't know. By the way, maybe the pastor can help me out here. Let me ask you. We have clergy here. I don't understand. See, I had 2 days in football where you go 2 days, you practice. Not, you guys know, the real 2 days, where you had to hit people, you stayed there, you showered, you got a sandwich, you went back out. By the time you got home, it was like 10 o'clock at night, it was dark. I'm like confused. I second guessed a lot of my decisions in playing football just because of 2 days. I did not know, Pastor, when I was growing up, that church has 2 days. Sometimes we used to go to church and I would be like, hey, so we would get there and it'd be 8 o'clock, praise and worship. Okay, we're there 2 hours. Then we have the sermon. Now the sermon, you like, that could be all depending on how good the pastor's doing. Like, if the pastor's rocking and rolling, you will be there for 3 hours. It's no set anything. And then afterwards, I was like, good, we're ready to go. Browns are coming on TV. Cleveland Browns are coming on TV. Now I'm looking at my father like, you gotta save us. You have to save us from this. Because if the Browns are coming on, we gotta be out of here 12:30 minute max. He looks at me and gives us that little, I don't know, we're gonna have to hang on. And then we go and we have to go downstairs and eat. I'm like, no, we have food at the house. We're missing the first quarter. This is crazy. He's like, listen, man, 2 days in church were listen, hopefully it pays off. I'm getting a little older. I did those services. I didn't complain. So I just wanted to know, maybe you can let me know coming back up next. I just want to know. And that was break time number 1. Let's get to the next story. So sometimes it's not about money. It's about what else you can offer someone. So this comes from people that you connect with, right? I am here today because of the people who are counselors. Giving counsel and getting advice from your elders, from the people we call OGs, that's huge. And sometimes people in our generation and the generations underneath us don't realize the wealth of knowledge that people who have done it before, people who have lived and experienced before. I always encourage I go to talk in prisons, and I always tell people, I encourage them to sit up underneath your elders, your aunts, your great aunts, your grandparents, and just ask them, just sit there and talk to them. I say, you think this is crazy? We was going through the pandemic. I said, listen, let me tell you this. Every single time you go into a house, how many people do you see who have military service? It's amazing. Like, people back then went to wars, came back home, dealt with depression, the Great Depression, all through all of these things, and they're still here. So they can tell you may think you're going through something now, but they can give you a little hint and say, listen, son, listen, at that, when you was, you guys, when you were 18, you guys knew how to cut wood. You knew how to work on a car. You knew the metric system. You knew how to carve things with your hands. You know how to fix all the plumbing, all the electrical. You get on top of the roof, you could do all of that. I don't know how to do none of that. They did not give me that in school. I know what it is to write in cursive, and that's it. That's it. That's the only thing I learned. I can't tell you what I learned, but cursive. But I'll say, in 1 year since in jail, tell you, 1 year, I worked with Adam the Bull, who's a long time radio veteran from New York. Man, I came in and I didn't know what to do. These guys, we got on the set, and Jay walked in with like 5 seconds left before the show was on. He had his earpiece in, he had his microphone in his back pocket, and I'm sitting there like with notes and stuff. I'm looking around, they say, and go. This dude comes out with a monologue. I'm like, how the hell does he have that? Does he have notes? They're just rattling off. And then all of a sudden, Adam the Bull is over here. He's going off. He's from New York. You know, New Yorkers talk fast. And I'm like, wow, they're doing that. And I'm sitting here in the middle looking around like, I'm just waiting to get in. I'm waiting. They stopped at the end of the show. All the executives sat in the back room and was like, hey. And I'm like, who are you talking about? You're gonna have to say something. You gotta jump in there. And I was like, I didn't get a chance to. Now, usually you could get salty about that. You could be upset about that. But here's the thing. I embraced it. I knew I didn't have I know I didn't have that level of experience, but I know I wanted it. So I would wait around and I would go visit him in the gym. So we go work out, Jay goes right to the gym. I still ain't disciplined like that. I still not. You don't get disciplined like that till you're like 50. You guys have routines. You guys have routines. You probably eat the same thing every day in the morning. You eat the same thing on Tuesday. You go over here. Listen, it's crazy. I love your work ethic and your routines. I don't have it yet. Like, he works out every single day. Not me. I just get up. Maybe I'm gonna work out. It depends on how I'm day to day. It depends on how I'm feeling it that day. So I used to go in there and I used to pick his brain. And he's given me such a wealth of knowledge about here's how you should go about doing your contracts. Here's how you should not take that deal. I don't know if you should do that. Here's how you go about networking and getting bigger guests. Here's how you go about introducing yourself. And in 1 year, I've went from walking around doing nothing, being at my house doing these shows, to sitting at a table with Bernie Kosar, hearing him talk about changing the play that got his job. Changing the play Monday night with Bill Belichick. That's one of the greatest stories I've ever heard. Bernie Kosar changing the play and Bill Belichick being completely mad as hell about it and getting him out of here. It's one of the best stories of all time. You gotta hear it sometimes. But just him. I talked to Stephen A. Smith. Leroy Horde, I talked to him. DeQuell Jackson. There's so many different people. I just talked to Tim Legler. These are people that I grew up watching. I'm a kid from Canton. Like, I literally are from Canton. Drove by here. The bus used to drive me by there every single day. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm sitting here. But the people that help you out the most is the people that's gonna give you the advice. And I commend them for giving me guidance and advice. And if anybody wants to know how you go about becoming better and being who you need to be, seek advice from those who went before you. We'll get to this story. This one is a tough story. My dad is a huge baseball guy. And when I was 12 years old, like Jay said, I hit like 60 or 70 home runs. Anybody know where Shanafelt Field is here? Yeah. I drive back. Them is the best years of my life. Man, them is the best years of my life going in. I thought that was our own Fenway Park. It was all green. I was like, this is great. I grew up playing at Shanafelt. I think it's gone. Yeah, it's gone. I think it is. And I just remember growing up playing baseball. My dad was my coach. And after I was done playing baseball, we started doing traveling ball. So my first year, 13-year-old, I was traveling baseball. So my dad got us together. We were really good. We were gonna go to the Little League World Series. We were just a couple of games away. And I'm like, this is gonna be a breeze. This is awesome. I love this right here. We're gonna get this done. My dad comes in, he comes from work and he says, it's time to go sign up for baseball. I said, what you mean sign up? I was like, I'm already kind of spoken for, same team, right? He said, no. You're gonna play with my team. It's a brand new team. I turned around and looked around. I said, what you mean you got a team? Like, that's nice, but I'm over here. I'm just gonna have to decline. No thanks, but no thanks. I didn't know it was not negotiable. Now, instead of looking at my dad being like, let me get you out of this, I'm looking at my mom like, come on now, you gotta do something. What are we doing here? You need to step in and get this done. And so my father started a team And he started it with the Urban League. And so I went from playing high level baseball to we just teaching fundamentals now. And I'm like, I'm 14 years old, I wanna win. I didn't understand what was going on. We had these janky uniforms. We only had numbers on the back. We didn't have no names. It was just grades. I said, listen, we are back in the 20s now. And to half the season I pouted. You know, my dad was the only person that was going to the inner cities, and he had to pick up like 15, 20 kids because nobody had rides. And I would be in the front seat pouting because we were losing. I'd be in the front seat pouting because I didn't want to play with these kids. I wanted to play with my guys that I grew up with. And one day he benched me. Now, if you listen to him, he said I could have got to this pop fly. There was no way I could have got to this. There wasn't no way I could have got to this. I might have could have got to it, but he benched me. And I was just beside myself. He dropped all the kids off and all of a sudden we in a car and I'm like, I had an intervention with him. I said, what's going on here? I thought we were better than this. I could have swore we were better. And he said, you don't understand, do you? I said, no, I don't. Please enlighten me. He said, look, you got an opportunity to come here and play baseball at a high level because I was always there. I take you to practice. I get you the glove. You got the bats. We take you to batting cages. He said, how many kids over there have that same opportunity? I said, I never think of it that way. He said, how many of those kids have gloves, bats, anything? I said, I never thought about that. He said, the reason I needed you on this team was to set an example and to help me, to give back. You'll play baseball in high school, you're good enough to do that. You can play for any team, you'll still make the team. But what I need you to do is to set an example of how to take direction, how to listen to coaching, and be an example to kids who may not have an example like that in the household. And have you ever somebody told you something you felt like this big? Like I felt like, I was just like, wow, you're a jerk, Garrett. I didn't even understand what he was trying to say. But what he was trying to say is, sometimes you gotta give back. And what he was telling me is, sometimes you gotta give back your expertise. When you gain knowledge from guys like Jay, when you gain knowledge from the people around, when you gain that knowledge from being in the system and being in the industry, it's your responsibility to give that expertise back to somebody who didn't have that opportunity. To this day, Jay says I worked a lot. I told people, even if I got to be the biggest guy in the world, people still reach out to me. They have podcasts that talk about Ohio State or the Browns, or they might have 5 or 6 viewers. I still go on those podcasts when they ask, hey, G. Bush, will you come on my podcast? I always say yes, because at the end of the day, I don't feel like my gifts are my gifts. My gifts are just what the good Lord gave me. And my job is to lend those gifts to other people to get them to a place where they can have a platform to use their gifts. So sometimes it's just about giving your expertise, and my dad taught me a really big lesson when it comes to what you have to do in order to give back. Yeah, that was a very heartwarming story right there. I thought it was heartwarming. You guys can clap. Maybe not. Oh, look at that. Break time number 2. Now listen, we did really well in the first break time. I got a question. So I'm confused about this too. You guys can let me know, because I've grown up in an era where we pretty much had all our electronics. Right? As long as I got my phone, I am good. Like, I can order anything from my phone. They got like Amazon, where you could, this is scary though, you can like press a button and it comes to your house that day. Like the same day. It's crazy. Like, I'm like, hold on, how are they doing this? Now, back in the day, my grandmother, I thought she was rich because she used to sleep to QVC. And QVC was the craziest thing I had ever seen. She would call the people and they would be like, oh my goodness, QV5702, this is the topaz ring. I'm telling you ladies, this is something you're gonna be able to wear at the cocktail party. You'll be able to wear this around the house. Your hubby will love it. You can use this as a gift. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. And we got you right now. If you call in, 3 easy payments. 3 easy payments of $49.99, interest free, and if you get the credit card, we'll give you a free bag. I'm like, this is crazy. My grandma will be on the phone. Yeah, I would like 6 of those bags. I'm like, this is, I need this. Now it's Amazon, right? So I do got a question for y'all, man. Like, what did you guys do without internet and cell phones back in the day? What? Like, think about this. What? Like, dating was out of the, that might as well have been out of the realm. See, I was right out that age where you say, all right, back then when you had a landline, you used to have to call a girl's home. And then you had a time limit. You couldn't call nobody after 9 o'clock. Their father would answer the phone, son, do you know it's 9 o'clock on a school night? They were like, hey, I gotta click over, it's for my mom, call me back. I said, no, I'm not calling you back. Listen, there is a 96% chance your parents will answer this phone and I want no problems. Like, how were you even dating back then? No, it was impossible. No one dated, like you guys saw each other one time and been married forever. This is my high school sweetheart. They'd be like, this is my junior high sweetheart. We've been together since 6th grade. I'm like, oh gosh, this not me. We're working on that. But this is the second thing too. With internet comes like directions. See, you guys all have compasses in your head. You guys have like maps and compasses. You'll be like, hey, where is 44th Street, or where is this shop? You're like, listen, what you're gonna do, you're gonna make a left on Walnut. You're gonna go down 36 paces, take 3 steps to the side, then travel, dig a hole, and you'll get a treasure map. Once you get that treasure map, you're gonna go to Myers Lake Plaza. After Myers Lake Plaza, you're gonna shoot a gun flare, and you'll be right there. We'll pick you up and we'll take you to, how do you guys know this stuff? I don't understand how you got it. Like, how did anybody get pizza delivered? If you were a pizza delivery guy, you had to be a savant. Like, you were a genius. Like, you had all those streets in your head and you just turned up and you was delivering it in a reasonable time? Crazy. I don't know how we didn't have internet. I don't know what happened. And that was break number 2. We're almost there. We're almost home. All right, so we'll get, and I saved almost the best for last. So, support. So, we talked about the ways you can support someone. We talked about time. We talked about expertise. We talked about giving you advice. But most of all, support. So, when I started, I went through a process. I got a divorce, and boy, I tell you, divorces are tough, man. I got a divorce, and I was reeling. I was like, so hold on. So what do you mean this house? Like we have to fight over it? like we just somebody gets it? Like, I'm like this. I was confused. I went through a divorce, and at the same time, little known fact, I have had 17 surgeries. So currently, I have 3 herniated discs in my neck that can't be operated on because my spinal cord is kind of wrapped and draped into those discs. So I've had, undergo this procedure where they burn the nerves in my neck so I don't feel them. So I get this procedure every year, and I got a divorce, and I was by myself, and I actually remember being in the house and being like, just during COVID, I'm like, no one could visit me. I'm like, I might die here. Like, it's just one of those things where you question yourself a little bit. I didn't know. And I'm recovering from surgery. And at the time, I was dating this lovely young lady, right? But what people don't know is, we started dating and we got married on a K-1 visa. So she was in the Philippines at the time, right? So she used to wake up in the middle of the night and see if I was alive every day. It's crazy. Like, she'd wake up, and it's a 12-hour difference, right? So she would wake up and do it. And at the time, I was just sitting there thinking, like, I don't know if I can do radio anymore. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And at my lowest point, now mind you, in the Philippines, it's a very poor country. She grew up with no running water. She grew up with no electricity. She had 12 brothers, 10? I want to say 10. 10 or 11 brothers and sisters. And, you know, she actually helped deliver or birth her siblings. That's how rural it was. And so as we, you know, started dating and talking, she did things that I didn't think was possible. Now, mind you, I live in the United States, and to them, we are abundantly rich. But she used to say, I used to call her, and because I did not have the money for my medicine for my neck, I'd call her and she'd give it to me. Now, for a person who didn't have it, to offer it is to this day, I can't really put it into words, because she was there when I was at my lowest point. We did finally get married, and she came on our K-1 visa. And as we were sitting there talking, I was really working in my corporate job, and things were going pretty well. And she just saw that, like, it was draining me because I didn't love my job. You guys know, like, have you ever worked a job where you get up on Sunday and you think of every excuse not to go, but you just have to? Everybody has done those jobs where you're just thinking about, like, why I don't love this, I hate this, I don't know if I can continue to do this. And she saw that I hated it. And like, I remember sitting there and I said, you know what, I can't quit. I got a house, I got insurance, I got all this stuff, I cannot quit. And she gave me the support that I needed in a way that I didn't think I would get it. We're sitting in the car, and we reminisce about this all day. We're sitting in the car, and I'm hanging there, and she said, hey, I know you don't like your job, and I will go get a job. If you quit your job and pursue media full time, I will find a job and help support us. Now, mind you, she ain't been here but like 4 months. I was like, where are you gonna get a job at? She was like, I could go to Rite Aid or something. I was like, excuse me, wait, Rite Aid ain't gonna pay the bills. So just for the simple fact that she said that, showed me that she supported me in a different way. I told her thank you, but no thank you. I'm gonna keep my job. But what it did do is it forced me to go for it. I edited my resume, and I took everything about corporate America off of it. And I put everything that I have ever done in the media. And that day I decided that I was gonna give it my 100%, and I was just gonna go for it. Because if she had the faith in me to say that she knew it was gonna work, I knew I could do it. 1 week later, the story comes full circle. That same guy I told you about in the beginning of the story, Steve, 1 week later he called me and said, hey, this is Steve from Atlanta, Georgia. Would you like to be on this show? And I hung up on him and I called him back. And that was a year ago. And I've been doing the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show full time since then. It just goes to show you, God will reward you, God will bless you, but you gotta put the work in. You gotta go for it. Gotta go for it. Proverbs 11:14 says, where there's no guidance, a people fall. But in abundance of counselors, there is safety. In other words, one of the main ways God will help you find your purpose is through others. Your counselors should be people you trust, whether this is your professors, parents, or friends. It needs to be people who have your back and want the best for you. You want wise counselors to help you find God's purpose for you. Cherish the wisdom of elders in your life because they are the best resource for wisdom. All 5 of these stories involve people that are near and dear to me, and all 5 of these stories include people that helped me get to where I am today. You do nothing in this world by yourself, and it's always important to remember that, even when you're at the lowest or at your highest. And so I thank all of those individuals and all the and people who have helped me get to where I am. And I want to thank the city of Canton for instilling in me the purpose, instilling in me the work ethic to always say, no matter what you do, aspire to be a Hall of Famer. Whether you a gardener, whether you're a plumber, whether you a teacher, just be a Hall of Famer. And that's what the city of Canton is all about. That's what the Hall of Fame Luncheon is about. And that is what I'm about. Thank you.
You can take 2 questions.
Oh, 2 questions. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, there you go.
Okay, as far as your speech, it was special today. I'd like to have your estimation, since you're so well groomed with the Cleveland Browns, if Deshaun Watson will bring us our dreams. And my other comment is, as far as your wife, you did good.
I did good. Listen, I'm hitting over my average, right? So the question was, do you think, with all of my expertise in watching the Browns, is Deshaun Watson the guy to take us to the promised land? Now, I debate with Jay Crawford all the time, and we've had this conversation 100 times. He says he better. For 3 first-round picks, G. Bush, he better be all of that, a biscuit, and better than he was with the Houston Texans. I will say this. Listen, I'm tough on people. I don't know if you listen to my shows, but I'm tough. I think Deshaun Watson has all the physical traits and talents to do it. My question is, does the entire team come together and does it fit? The quarterback has to elevate you. He has to. Like, it can't be, he can't be medium. He can't be regular. The guy Joe Burrow, I don't know. Good gracious, the good kid Joe Burrow is like man, he can run for governor one day. He just walks into the room and people just love him. It's crazy. I don't know how he throws the football. You can't tackle him. He might be an apostle. He might be an apostle. I mean, he has it, man. And so when you got guys like that and Patrick Mahomes, we need him to be special. I think the Browns, should I say it? They're gonna make the playoffs. Playoffs for the Cleveland Browns. Will you take that one? Yeah. Or you went to Super Bowl? Look, one step at a time. One step at a time. They call me the Duke of knee-jerk reactions, right? I get happy really quickly. Like, I'm one of those guys, if the Browns play well in preseason, I'm like, book them, stamp it right now. Browns are going to the Super Bowl. I'm just sorry. I get excited sometimes. A little excited.
How special was it to play on 2 state championships back-to-back high school teams, and what kind of influence was Tom McDaniels on you and your career, how you went into college ball and whatever?
Man, being part of the state championships, I'm in the midst of trying to do a documentary on the 97 and 98 years, and so I went and got the archives, and I started watching those games back. And I tell you what, it was magic. I would call my mom and say, Mom, I'm watching this game, and I know we won, but McKinley is losing right now, and I don't know if they're gonna win. She's like, Garrett, you do know that's old. I'm like, no, but it's just different. Like, when I go back and look at that era, And you know, when you look at like the Browns not being here, so 95, these Cleveland Browns leave. 1996, I start high school. And for my whole career, we have no professional team. There's nothing. All we had was the Cleveland Indians, and then the Cleveland Indians were awesome during that time period. But for me, we didn't have any role models, any things to like look forward to. But I look back at that era and I look about how the city embraced that team. For you to go to these games and there's 28,000 people, there's 30,000 people, you know, you're selling out Kent and Akron Stadium. It was crazy. And to play with some of the players, I mean, I didn't even get to play until my junior year. Like there's a guy named Kenny Peterson. He was just good. Like I was upset. Like my dad was like, I said, I gotta transfer. I gotta get up. But look, he's like, no, you gotta stay. And I said, okay. But it was like, man, how am I supposed to play behind this dude? I can't play nothing. And then he played basketball too. We played the same position in basketball. I was mad. I was upset. Kenny's a good dude. Shout out to Kenny. Mike Dawson. Tell you what. Mike Dawson, one of the best players I've ever seen, period. He did the same thing to St. Ignatius that he did to Miami. I never saw that. Like the U, Miami, like he did it in college, 3-time All-American. And people don't get it. Ben McDaniels was audible. No one let you audible back then. Like he would just come up and change the play. I said, this is crazy. Kids don't do that now. But it was the best time of my life, and I always tell people, when you are young and you are, you know, when you do things, and when I have dreams, I don't dream of, no disrespect, honey, just me, okay? I don't dream of my wedding. I don't dream of none of that. I don't dream of any of those things. When I dream, I'm back in high school in front of all them people, and it's like you can't take it away from you. It's just one of the most special times in your life. And Coach McDaniels, to your second point, Coach McDaniels, he'll tell you, I wasn't very serious back in the day. So Coach McDaniels, I mean, he told me, hey, if you don't come to every condition, you ain't playing. I said, dang, ain't you strict? I came as one. So what I did is I found a loophole. I said, if I play every single sport, then I don't got a winter condition, right? I play basketball too. So he was just like, oh, no. Yeah, but we'll catch you in the summer. But no, Coach McDaniel, and I talked to Maurice Claret, who, you know, Coach McDaniel went to Warren Harding, and Maurice Claret will tell you the same thing. Coach McDaniels was running, he was Bill Belichick before Belichick. He had a program before programs was out. Like, we'd be on these tracks running and lifting, and he held it like it was a real college program. And when we got on the field, and we started playing the good teams, like Coach Chuck Kyle from St. Ignatius. To be St. Ignatius, you gotta be special, man. You can't have no penalties. You can't have false starts. You can't have nothing. Because those dudes are just to the T in their gap. They do everything well. They tackle people well. They're just, St. Ignatius was the closest thing to a pro team I've ever seen. I'm like, these guys don't make mistakes. So Coach McDaniels understood what we needed to do. To beat a team like that, to get to a point where a city team, a team that is just full of guys who are just, you know, we from the inner city, you know, to get them to be at that level, to win a national championship in 1997 it was a beautiful thing. I cherish it all the time, and it's great to see Antonio Hall, who is my brother growing up. Like, it's great to see him at McKinley doing that, because he knows what it takes. He knows that lineage, and I'm just excited to see him on them sidelines, and I'm just super happy because I think he can get McKinley back to where we want to go.
Thank you.